So, welcome back to Connect. I'm your host, Andy Hale. I've got with me Tony Klein, and I asked him for a bio. I'm gonna read it. I love this. This is maybe my favorite bio I have had.
100% true.
Is it really? Here we go. The year was 1982. The Milwaukee Brewers had just lost the World Series, and it was a trying time for the people of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I love the fact you're from Wisconsin. Wisconsin's good people.
Yeah, exactly.
Saddened by the loss of their team and once again reminded of their crappy lives, they needed a new hope, an answered prayer, if you will. That November, they got that answer from a solitary lightning storm in a nearby city named Waukesha. Did I pronounce that right?
Perfectly.
The clouds rolled in and a single lightning bolt produced the loudest thunder ever recorded in the history of all time. That's a fact. Is that true?
True. 100% accurate.
A local housewife hanging her laundry to dry saw the electrical storm, and as if a voice called to her, she felt compelled to check the scene. Much to her amazement, she found a huge crater in the middle of the field, and in said crater, she found a child. The woman took one look at the child and knew she found her next son. After all, she was known to have a habit of collecting in fields and inviting them to live with her. She named him Tony, Toe-Knee, because those were the only two areas injured in his crash landing in the field. They later abbreviated it to Tony. That's the story of how Tony Klein came to be, I think.
Exactly.
I love it. Is there anything you want to add to that?
After I, was raised by this woman, I was living in Milwaukee for 20 years and as a carpenter, and I moved to California 20 years ago. So I'm at that halfway point of, I guess, dual citizenship in both states,
Well,
But,
I love it. I know you've got a lot of things going on. I know that you are into comedy, you're into writing. I met you at the Sunset Tower Hotel, where we connected.
Yeah.
I wanted to have you on because you and Eric, I just think you're a good example of what I've been saying on this podcast, which is the power of a personal connection. So when I came to, we met, I could have easily just, had a very transactional kind of interaction with you.
Yeah.
But it was more. We connected, and that sparked conversation. We talked about our mutual interest of film and writing and producing. I've been on your podcast with Eric, the Eric and Tony podcast, which was a blast. By the way, that setup puts me to shame. I mean, you have a studio with all this furniture, multiple cameras, and the best part, cocktail of choice, which,
I mean, the most important part is the guest. So we were honored to have you on there. And that's really, all the, the flash and stuff like that. I think it's nice. Production ups the production value and stuff, but really as the name of this podcast, it's about the connection, right? So having you as a guest is great.
And that's what I want to talk to you about. I always like to pick people's brains and, kind of hear their personal stories, because I've told mine about a lot of the ways I have connected with people and a lot of the ways that I think you can create your own opportunities by connecting with people. And I'm trying to empower people. I think what people don't realize is you've got so much ability to connect and create that everybody has, that they're just not aware of. And I think it stems from your energy and the energy you kind of give off.
Yeah.
And I think if you can radiate that and vibrate that, that's when you make connections with people. That's when those people now become collaborators, people you create with. Tell me if this resonates with you and what you've noticed in your own life about it.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, interestingly enough, I read a book earlier this past year called Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Have you read this?
No.
I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I think it's Talk Bentop, but he basically talks about the aura of energy that's outside of your physical body, right? So that's why, when myself or, a person like yourself, we meet, there is some kind of like, I feel like I've known you for a while, and you kind of just like, there's that same comfortability where like, you just become instant friends, right? Because, you know, obviously we have a lot of stuff in common being from the Midwest, so there's a little bit of like gearing in that direction, right? But there's also this kind of unspoken thing that kind of is outside yourself where you can have like, you literally pick up on someone's energy, right? Um, but in that, he kind of explains on how that works. So like, if you go into a clock shop, right, and there's like a bunch of clocks hanging on the wall, and all the pendulums are swinging in the same direction. It's not because they set them that way. It's because the vibrational energy eventually they all sync up, so they're all moving in harmony like that. The same way women like tend to be on the same cycle. You know what I mean? There's something outside yourself that you kind of connect and like likes with likes, and and the same. And same goes to say when you're in a sketchy side of town and you get a kind of an odd vibe from someone that looks a little shady. You pick up on energy, good or bad, but it tends to be a good thing, especially in like the comedy community, where like I've always had like since I started doing stand up like over a decade ago, it was very easy for me to connect with people and make my way through navigating that scene, just because like I'm an outgoing person, and people kind of I don't know, I just tend to make friends easily, and bookers and stuff like that. It's nice to have that. It's like I don't know how I attained that asset, throughout life, but I know when I was a little kid, I was very shy. And at some point in time, you move around enough, you have to kind of start, you know, go through the grind again. Like I think I ended up moving schools like every 3 or 4 years. So I was like, all right, I'm the new kid in school again. Time to do this. So once you do that so many times, and then moving to like the proverbial biggest school ever, California versus Wisconsin, it's the same thing too. It's like starting from scratch. So I don't know if just because of repetition, it was very easy for me to get outside my shell and make friends, but also, and I'm not always completely accurate as far as like sometimes like I got hosed by a gypsy guy doing a dent removal on my Oldsmobile, years ago. And I didn't pick, sometimes you don't know. I'm like, is this a good vibe or a bad vibe? I'm like, I trust
But
this
you
guy.
went into it with good intentions, so it's
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, because you get burned. I mean, I feel like when you're like the bigger person or like, someone that's optimistic, you're gonna have some losses, right? But I'd rather go through thinking that something's gonna work out, and then when it doesn't, you're like, yeah, well, at least I was optimistic about it, right? I say that being a divorced guy, where I was like, the whole time I was married, I'm like, this is great. And then I realized my marriage kind of rotted out. I was like, well, it wasn't like the entire time I was married. I was like, this is never going to work. You know what I'm saying? So at least I had some like, good 9 years there.
I actually think all those things you said, I think they happen for a reason. In that, let's just take the one with the gypsy guy, whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's a situation where he needed the money,
for sure.
and it was a thing where it happened, and I think your first reaction is you kind of beat yourself up like, oh, I'm so stupid, I shouldn't know. But
Yeah,
I feel like, what? Okay, if this, it's still like all good to me. It's like fine, I guess if they needed the money that bad,
yeah,
whatever, you can have it, and I still got a smile on my face. I think with
yeah,
relationships too, it can be hard, but I always try to tell people, I think that when one door closes, there's something, either right now you were meant to be on your own, personally and professionally. Maybe that's the
yeah.
best path for you right now.
Absolutely.
And maybe you'll find somebody, and I think a lot of times people don't have as much of a sample to compare to. And then you're like, oh my God, like this new person I found, she makes me laugh all the time. She's so damn funny. Like I never
Yeah,
seen this before, or whatever. And I think it's hard, but I really truly believe that, and I've got a sign around the other corner in the other room where I just custom made it. Everything in life is an opportunity. And I so believe that.
yeah.
And so what you said though about the energy, I'll throw a book out to you, and I've talked about it on this podcast a little bit. It's called Abundance Ever After by a woman named Kathy Heller.
Okay.
Uh there's a spiritual medium. I don't know if I've talked about this spiritual medium with you. Her name is Jessica Rachel. That's a whole nother conversation. She told me about this book, and it just resonated with me. And I think the biggest change I felt in the last, couple months is just the energy I feel. Excuse me. And she talks in there about how when you radiate your energy, when you share that energy, when you have that positive vibe, when you're feeling like aligned and you're just feeling good about things, that's when the magic happens. I think so.
Absolutely.
So many
Yeah.
times people talk about manifestation and affirmations and visualizations. I don't think it's going to have any power if you're doing it from a standpoint of just no energy with it.
Yeah.
I just in the last 2 months or so, I think from a combination of things I've read, people I've listened to and whatnot, I have felt so energetic and contagious. And I
Yeah.
have felt so alive and invigorated. And a lot of things are now happening with me, with my projects and things I'm working on. And I think it's all because of what I'm putting out there is this feeling, my excited, energy aligned feeling, and
Yeah.
it's attracting to me people and opportunities. And I'm just like floating. I feel like even if I'm at the grocery store, I don't walk around the grocery store like with my cart, like, oh, God damn it, I can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah.
Where are the eggs? I am like on ice skates. I'm just breezing down the aisles.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get life is good. And what she says in the book is the ultimate compliment you can get is somebody saying to you, man, I love your energy, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think when you and I met, it's so different if a person says hi, like the greeting can be cold, it can be neutral, or it can just be warm. The way you
Yeah.
say hello, the way you greet somebody can send a message right away
Oh
energetically,
yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I
You're
think it's,
setting the tone. You know what I mean? That's your opener, right?
yeah. And so, have you noticed anything, in the last, like, say, 12 months where either a person came your way or an opportunity came your way, you made a connection just because of something you did that you took a little deeper time to kind of connect with somebody?
I have. I kind of feel like I don't have a specific example, but I kind of feel like I'm on the same trajectory as you, where there's like I somehow, and I don't know if it's just for the series of books I've read, where I've just been kind of like positively charged. Where yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel a little lighter in my step. Those mundane tasks like grocery shopping or traffic don't seem to bother me because you kind of like and maybe just being present and taking inventory of what all the good things you have in your life are, right? And then kind of knowing that like yeah, the world's your oyster. You can do. I read this book called Atomic Habits, and he basically talks about doing things like just like 1% better every day, right? And by the end of the year, you're hundreds of times better than you were before, right? So like in all the littlest things, like in your shower routine or whatever it might be, if you can just be the most efficient, best version of that, it tends to be that way with everything in life. And I don't know, just even again, always being kind of a positive guy. I'm also the mentor to my kid. I have a 5-year-old, so like I'm trying to always keep him because he can have like little mood swings and he'll be like kind of pouty or tired or whatever it is after school. So just trying to really we went back to Wisconsin for in between the holidays and got stuck in a layover in Chicago, ironically enough. And
Ah,
and sometimes flying solo by myself in my 30s or 20s, you're like, god damn it, I'm stuck here, and you get all kind of pissy about it. But just being there with the kid, and he's watching planes come in and then de-ice stuff, and there's all this stuff going on, right? And it makes
imagine.
you appreciate things. Where it's like, yeah, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's just like you kind of take a beat and you really kind of realize like this whole experience is pretty magical.
Exactly. There's so many things. I had to take some notes on things you said because it sparked so many thoughts in my mind. The first thing you said is positively charged. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And
Yeah,
it gives me goosebumps when I say it.
yeah,
This is what this is what I want to have you try. Um, and then we'll talk again, but I want you to try this going forward. You're probably already doing it, but one of the mantras that I have had for 2025, and it's a combination. I got inspired from a lot of people, including Gary V.
yeah,
And Gary V, I don't know if you've read his book, Crush It. And he's huge on X. He's an entrepreneur. And my mantra is create, create, create. Put yourself out there. And what he says is, you don't need somebody's permission. And, so I'll give you an example of that, a personal example for me. I have always had this idea. I probably mentioned it to you because I'm always talking about it. Combining two of my passions, true crime and food. So I was at CrimeCon a couple years ago, and I met this guy, Shane Bishop, who's a Dateline NBC producer. We've become good friends. He loved the idea so much. He's like, man, this is a great idea. You should pitch this. He's like, you should call it Hungry for Justice is the name of the show. Kind of combining the show diners, drive-ins and dives with like Dateline, where basically I'm talking about a case, but I'm at Cantor's Deli on Fairfax, or I'm, somewhere. And so whenever I bring this up, oftentimes the feedback I get is, I don't know, dude, it seems a little weird to talk about food and crime. Isn't it a little weird? And you know what? And maybe it is, but to me, it feels so good. I love the idea. So what I decided to do is I'm just creating now a series called Hungry for Justice. I just recorded my first episodes. I'm going to put it out on TikTok. It's being edited now. And what Gary Vee says, and this really struck me, you don't need anybody's permission. He is like, post your shit, do your stuff, do your thing. He's like, we're all going to die. So my point to you is, whatever, and I know you've got a lot of buckets of things you're interested in. So let's take comedy or writing or film. What I want to encourage you to do is create. You don't have to wait to get booked at a certain venue. You don't have to wait for somebody to like green light. Oh, I think that's a good idea. I'll collaborate on it with you. Do it. You can just create, you probably already have this. I'm probably preaching to the choir. You can have your own YouTube page where you've got little 5-minute comedy stand-up bits that you create in your basement. You can create little short films, post them, right? I mean, you can do all this stuff.
No, it's funny though, because I always think I can be doing more. I have a lot of like, stand-up clips and stuff, but the sketch stuff is where I kind of like get that hesitation where I'm like, is it good enough? And, I think they're like the saying like, done beats perfect anytime, right? I
always say that done is better than perfect. And it's a perfect example of my Hungry for Justice. I was kind of spinning my wheels like, how am I going to logistically do it? Do I need to script it out? Blah, blah, blah. And finally, just last week, I'm like, no, I'm going to go record it today. Literally got in my car, drove over to one of my favorite hot dog places in Chicago, recorded it all in my car. Is it perfect? No. Is it great? No. Could it be better? Yes. And the other thing Gary Vee talks about, and so many people I've read this, I don't care what people think. I don't care if it gets 2 likes right now. I don't care. I'm not going to check. I might connect podcast. I don't know how many people watch this. I don't really care right now. I mean, I'd love it if it resonated with more people, and I got this right in front of me. It's funny. There's another great book, Rick Rubin.
Creative Act.
The Creative Act. And what he says in here, the audience comes last. What he says is, and I've seen him on TikToks, create what feels good to you. And Hungry for Justice feels good to me. I like it. I'm passionate about it. He's like, don't create for an audience like, what will they like? And for you, don't try to create a comedy skit or something like, well, what will an audience like?
Absolutely.
If you got a sketch you want to do and, you're worried other people may think it's weird or it's stupid, who cares? You know what? Because all it takes is one person seen it and said, man, have you seen that Tony Klein it's got that weird sketch he does with the bananas and the fruit, And I think the biggest key is being authentic.
Absolutely.
And if you are authentic and passionate about what you're doing. But what I was going to say was, it's the long-winded way of, this is what I found. Now that I've really since my mantra is create, 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 I've been recording podcast episodes much more frequently. I'm on a schedule now where I'm dropping a new Connect episode every week. I'm dropping either a Starve Rock Murders or a true crime episode every week. So I'm putting out 2 a week. I'm recording my Hungry for Justice series. I'm working on a short documentary film about Chester Weger, my client, with the Starved Rock murders.
Yeah.
I'm pitching a feature doc. I'm just pounding out the content. And here's the thing. This is what I want to say. Because I'm doing all that, I feel, to use your words, positively charged. Yeah. I feel energized. I feel excited. My baseline is excitement because I'm into what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Then once you have that feeling and that's your energy, that's when the magic really happens. And you start having these opportunities come your way, either through people or other ideas you have. And so what I want to encourage you to do is do more. Whatever you're doing now, ramp up your game, record more, write more, put it out there. And then because you're doing that, I guarantee you, you're going to feel good. You are going to feel energetic.
Absolutely.
Feel positive. And then I want to see, what kind of happens, so that's kind of my little nugget of advice for you. And I got a feeling you're already doing a lot of this, but
but it's funny that we again, I love the name of this podcast and the concept of it, because I feel like, when I first met you, it was a little over a year ago or whatever, and I was in a pretty, I've always been a pretty positive guy, even going through the traumatic end of a marriage, whatever. Still didn't let that take me down. But after, kind of letting the ripples, phase away and getting back on track and stuff like that, I do have this reinstilled vigor where I'm just like, and it's kind of what you're saying, where the more you're fully immersed in that stuff, the more it kind of resonates with the people around you, and you become what you are going for, right? Where for me, when it goes around and I do shows, I'm doing in that scene, or just, even in public, be like, what do you do? I'm like, I do stand up. Then I end up getting some people to follow, people that come out to shows and stuff like that, or people like to, but I'm shooting a pilot next weekend and stuff like that, just because of the people that I've met, and, just kind of how things go. And, who knows if it goes anywhere, but still that wouldn't have been an opportunity had I not just been moving around in that light of I'm Tony Klein comic, you know what I mean? So there's there was a point where I was I got my real estate license, then I became a realtor, and that was the energy I was putting out there, and that was not, it was not authentic.
Not you, man. I know it's not you. And it's
no, exactly.
It's okay. And Rick Rubin talks about this. It's okay to have a job. Yeah. It's okay you have a job that pays the bills, but still do your thing, still do your passion. And here's the thing. Yeah. When I say put it out there, I think people oftentimes wait until let's say you're into comedy. Well, I'm not going to post something on YouTube until I got something that's really funny. I don't want to this isn't funny enough. I'm not going to post it. Or this content isn't good enough. I'm not going to post it. No. I feel like you got to put it out there for a couple of reasons. One, the stuff you're creating is resonating with you. So anything, any little comedy sketch you do, any little short thing you want to write, it's resonated with you. Put it out there. I also think it's a process. And I think if you do that, if let's say your goal was, I'm going to put out a new sketch every week, a little 5-minute sketch, a 2-minute sketch, and maybe the first 8 weeks, you look back and they weren't that funny. But you know what? Because you did those first 8, 9 and 10 clicked. They fucking clicked. And you wouldn't have gotten a 9 and 10 if you didn't do 1 through 8. And you'll see this a lot of times with people who've, on TikTok or social media, they could go months not really anybody really noticing their content. And it could be, I'm not just talking about, little influencers. I could be talking about an old lady, and this is a true story, an old lady telling you how to carve a pumpkin. I've seen that video, or the old guy grandpa telling you how to microwave corn on the cob. So I really want to encourage you and others to so I've got two: create, and post. Put it out there. And I guarantee you, even if you're feeling good now, it's kind of like Spinal Tap. Now it's going to go to 11. Okay. Yeah. It's going to go up a notch. Okay. Even if you think you're at a 10, which you're probably not, it's going to go to an 11. And that is when things happen. I've seen this with me, and I was meeting with Hayden. You've met my son Hayden, and I was meeting
Yeah.
so I was meeting with him and his buddies in Montecito at their house. And so, Hayden wants to get into screenwriting. A couple of his friends wanted to get into acting. A couple are musicians. One guy's like a DP, wants to film. I'm like, you guys, especially in today's climate in Hollywood where it's tougher right now, don't wait for, trying to get an agent or trying to get somebody to read this. So what we're going to do now is just create our own little short film. I mean, it's the barriers to entry now are like zero.
Exactly.
You and I could create a short little film, use our iPhones, pop it up on YouTube, pop it up on TikTok, and put it out there for the world to see. Share it. Does this resonate with you? Am I preaching to the choir?
No, no. Well, no, there's a little bit, but I completely agree with you on all that stuff. And that's kind of like, the way I'm trying to go this year too, because even though we're already midway through February, it's still a brand new year. So there's a lot of things by the end of this year, I would like to have several shorts shot and, get back out. Yeah. So that's like
just create, put it out there, and there's so many mediums now. You can put this on YouTube. You could put it on TikTok. You could put it on Instagram. You could, here's the thing. I am 62 years old. I say this a lot in the podcast, okay? And this is my motivation to people. I have never felt more invigorated, alive, exhilarated, excited about my to-do list than I do right now.
Yeah.
And most of the people that I talked about this are, a fair amount younger than me, like you, and then substantially younger, like my son and his buddies.
Yeah.
And then there's a great...
How old is Hayden?
Hayden's 26.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's some great Gary V TikToks where he'll be like, speaking somewhere, and there's a question, the woman goes, hey, is it too old to kind of start a personal brand at 65? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no. Yeah. Like, what are you going to do the next 30 years? He's like, people are living longer. He's like, no, you got 30. What are you going to just sit around the house? You got
exactly. Yeah.
more years. Like, do it. So that really resonated to me at the stage of my life I'm in, and especially for people, younger. It doesn't matter your age at all. And I feel what I've really noticed the difference is compared to this year to last year. Now that I'm on this podcast schedule, forcing myself, and now it's not even a force, I enjoy it. Yeah. Putting out 2 podcasts every week. Every week on Tuesday, Connect comes out. On Thursday, a Starved Rock Murders or a true crime one comes out. Creating all these other side projects, hungry for justice. Last year, I was just kind of half-assing it. It's like when I would think about it, because I'm still a full-time lawyer with a full-time practice, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'll think about a podcast this week. A month could go by, I didn't do anything. Yeah. But because I'm creating my content now, and because I enjoy it, and it makes me feel good, my vibration has been elevated, and I've got so much energy that I'm just giving off that I can already see it creating opportunities for me. And it's just made my life more exhilarating and more fun and more enjoyable.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna want to have you back on here later in the year where we're gonna compare notes. What are you doing now, and what can you do to up your game?
Okay. Right now, I just got my a residency back at the West Side Comedy Theater. So I just started also doing I was running a weekly show at the place we record our podcast. Mm-hmm. So I'm just basically taking that on full time by myself. So I'm trying to get up back to what I was before the pandemic, between 6 to 9 times a week. Right. Obviously, I have my kid 3 or 4 times, during the week too. So days that I have my son, I can't get on stage at night. So there's actually some open mics or workshops and stuff during the day. I'm gonna go to one at noon today.
You're gonna go to noon today, and you're gonna feel so alive today and invigorated.
Oh my God,
you're gonna kill it today.
And it was just fun because there's this thing where like you said, like your last year, I was kind of running this pattern. I'm like, I can't do this today because I have, Anthony, and I'm not using my kid as like a scapegoat or anything like that, but it just, I wasn't thinking outside the box to figure out a way to go around that, to reroute. You know what I mean? You get stuck and you're like, ah. Now I'm like, no, we can do this. And in fact, I felt so great the last 2 weeks I've been doing this, where I feel like there's not a day that I'm not doing something to kind of keep pushing the needle, to keep moving forward. And so, but yeah, I want to start doing some little sketches and stuff like that. I guess they'd be kind of little clips like a podcast format, solo, because
yeah,
like that's like one of the things that's nice with you and like the your podcast is, apart from this one, by yourself, you don't have to worry about any kind of time constraints to somebody else. You just kind of, blow and go and keep doing it. So
yeah.
yeah, by the time I come back on in 6 months, wherever it is, I'd like to have a couple like character sketch podcast type things, and then I'm trying to tape a half an hour by summer. So
Amazing. And I really want to encourage and empower you to create. Put it out there, share it.
Yeah.
And don't worry about what people think. Don't worry. If you put out, let's say the next 10 things you put out and you're not getting much feedback, you're not getting much traction, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If it feels good to you, put it out there, because there's an evolution for you too as an artist, as a creator. And it's the same thing when you do a draft of if you're writing a screenplay or if you're writing any kind of anything, it gets better over time. But you got to be in the creative process to do it. And I also try to tell people, and I tell this to Hayden, take little victories. I try to have one thing a day I can feel good about. And it might be today, I'm done. I had an awesome podcast with Tony Klein. Like, it's done. You may have one little idea driving in the car. He said, you know what? I got a great idea for a little joke or a little line or a little gag. That thing's done. You've now checked the box. Today was a good day. It doesn't have to be something major, and when you elevate your vibe, I mean, Sunset Tower Hotel, by the way, is my ultimate elevate your vibe place, because I go there. I feel so good when I go to LA. I just feel alive, and it just put yourself in situations where you're elevating your vibe. Whatever it is you might like to do, take a walk, get a massage, go get a drink at your favorite little martini bar, have that, whatever it is, when you're kind of elevating your vibe through something you're doing, that all helps as well too.
Absolutely. My most therapeutic thing is taking my Oldsmobile out for a drive when it's not raining, because we've been raining the last week. But there's something about being in a classic car and like what I feel like was probably,
what year is it?
67.
Oh man, I'd love to see that. You have to text me.
I picked you up in it, didn't I? Did we?
I don't think so.
Oh, didn't I?
Man, I don't think so. I would have remembered that. Maybe you did, but I don't know. I would have remembered that.
Interesting.
What color is it?
Blue.
I love that. Just driving down Sunset in that car.
Yeah, it's like, well, I feel like that's kind of like the golden era of film, in the late 60s, and it's fully restored at this point. So, I live right by the Sunset Fire, where we had the fire last month. So, I had gotten my kid from his mom's, and I get back to my place, I get the evac notice. I'm like, oh, Jesus, so I'm trying to scramble and see what I can ransack my place and salvage.
Are you okay? Everything turned out okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm actually in my place now, but it was one of those things where I didn't know if I was going to lose my place. So I'm just kind of like, it was super stressful. But and my son luckily fell asleep, so he was asleep on the couch because I was trying to wake him up. I was like, buddy, you got to get up. This is not a drill. This is the real deal. And then he was just kind of was out. And I'm like, well, it's better that he's sleeping so I can just kind of do all this packing. He's not going to be like, scared or frantic. So I loaded my Honda up with all this stuff. And I was like, I can't just leave my Oldsmobile.
I think you picked me up in your Honda.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I made the mistake.
I didn't get the full package.
Yeah.
I didn't get the full package because we'll do that next time.
Absolutely.
I want to say one little thing about your son. I think your son leads to all these other avenues, because now you're going to think of dramatic, non-dramatic, and scripted and comedy ideas that revolve around kids and families.
Yeah.
That dynamic between you and him. And the other thing, like the airport story, it's such a great example oh, we got a layover, but it turns into this magical, he's watching planes take off and planes de-ice.
Yeah.
I always view those situations now. Let's say you're driving and you're going to go from Hollywood to the West Side, but it's taken you a lot longer than you expected. Instead of getting in this negative space where you're frustrated, I always say to myself, you know what? The universe is telling me there's like, pause and think now. This is a great time. Just pause and brainstorm. So I take that time in the car to be like, okay, what can be some more ideas for a pod? Like it's like the universe telling me, I'm providing you with some time, some alone time for you to be alone with your thoughts and to use it to your advantage creatively.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. So I now try to really embrace anything like that where it's something like that is happening,
Yeah.
Well, listen, brother, it is great talking to you. I could talk for hours. I hope some of this resonated with you. It's great to hear your story.
Yeah.
I just know, like, you're such a great person to click with. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. I can't wait to talk later in the year, maybe like in the summer.
Okay.
We'll come back in the summer and we'll connect again. We'll have a part 2. I'll talk about where Hungry for Justice is and some of my ideas.
Yeah.
You tell me where you are with some of your ideas, and we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great. And if you're coming in town in the summer, we can shoot the Connect podcast live in real life at my studio. I'll pick you up in the Oldsmobile. So
absolutely.
Yeah, a holy trinity of all the awesomeness.
Yeah. Done. I'm looking forward to it. We will stay in touch, all right?
Thanks, Andy.
All right. Talk soon.
All right. Later.